Welcome in. Friday, August 14th, this week's safety focus of the week. Should be a really beautiful day today, looking like temperatures low 80s, and with the north wind, the humidity is going to be kind of leaving us here today. So hopefully that will make for a little bit better working conditions. It's been pretty humid the last couple of days. This week's code of conduct is to work to OSHA, FRA, and ECI safety standards. So it's very, very important. These rules and regulations are really lesson learned from the history of construction. So it's definitely some best practices in there, but again, there's always room for improvement. So any questions regarding excavation, fall protection, traffic control, anything like that, just health and safety is here for your assistance and your guidance to help you through navigate occupational safety on your projects. So a quick little news, we went all week without a recordable injury. Excellent job. Continue those best practices, filling out those JHAs to start your day, communicating those hazards and controlling our exposures and eliminating our unsafe conditions and unsafe acts. This week we got a special guest. Amy's back from PT360 to talk about our wellness series. I'm going to kick it over to Amy for her presentation. Okay, Amy, you now have the controls.
Good morning. So we are going to start with a series on back pain. We're going to do a series on this because there's a lot to back pain. So just some quick back facts. Back pain is the most common cause of disability in people under the age of 45, the most expensive healthcare problem for people between the ages of 20 and 50, and accounts for 25% of all workers' comp claims in the United States. So that's all across all industries, not just construction. With this, we just really want to make sure that we're not contributing to this, that we're not losing days of work, that we're not losing our recreational activities due to back pain. So let's explore this a little more. If you look at back pain, 85% of people have low back pain in their lifetime. So that's most of us. That could just be, you're shoveling a lot on one day, you have back pain for a couple of days and it goes away, to something that could be pretty disabling and keep you, again, out of work or recreational activities. Luckily, only 1 to 2% of all back pain is caused by a serious illness. So that's something such as cancer, infection, and inflammatory disorder. Those are things that us in the medical profession are always looking out for. About 5 to 10% of low back pain has a specific cause. So that's just specific low back pain. So that could be a fracture. So that means you broke your bone in your back, or a bulging disc with radiculopathy. So radiculopathy is just a word for when the nerve is being pushed on, it shuts down your sensation, so you can't feel anything in your leg or your arm anymore, and you lose strength in your arm or leg. Good news is 90% of back pain is called non-specific low back pain. So that's back pain without specific damage to a tissue. So I'm sure some of you are sitting there thinking, well, I had an x-ray and it showed I had arthritis, or I had an MRI and it showed I had a bunch of bulging discs, and that's definitely why I have back pain. And we'll explore that a lot more, but I wanted to address that those things may not be the source of your pain. It just might be something that we're seeing because we can do imaging. So what are causes of low back pain? You guys know I love anatomy lessons here. I think it's important for us to understand some of our anatomy. So let's go over it. The disc is one source of pain. So if you look at the disc, this disc is a shock absorber in between each bone. You guys are all in construction, and you guys work with obviously engineering, you guys are building things, so you could see that these little discs in between each bone can take compressive load really well. So if we hold 250-pound weights in our hands, that compresses our spine, and this disc can tolerate that. That's our shock absorber. If we add some sort of bending or twisting to that, which adds an additional load, our back does not like that very much. So the discs take compressive load very well, but if we bend or twist or turn, especially under a compressive load, it doesn't do as well. Our muscles can be a source of pain. So on the left, we have some big, long muscles, and on the right, we have some really short, tiny muscles. All of those have little sensors in them, and those sensors can be a source of pain. Our fascia can also be a source of pain. You guys that are hunters probably know what fascia is. That's that white stuff that covers all of our muscles, all of our organs that you probably cut out and throw out. Our joints can be a source of pain. Joints are when two bones come together. The bones are covered with cartilage. It's a nice protective layer. It has fluid inside, and it has a capsule, so like a saran wrap around it. Any of those components could be a source of pain. Our ligaments connect bones together. You have big, long ligaments that span the whole length of your back and short little ligaments that go between each bone. Those, again, have sensors in them that cause pain. In nerves, we always hear about our nerves and nerve pain. At each level, so at every bone in our back, a nerve comes out on each side from our spinal cord. And those nerves come together and form networks. If you look at the picture on the left, you see them all kind of flowing down and starting to connect to each other. And they form bigger nerves, such as our sciatic nerve. Most of us have heard of sciatica. That is that pain that goes down the back of your leg. That's from all these nerves up at our spine coming together and forming a network. And they bring our sensations, so our ability to feel, our strength, and our reflexes. So when you go to the doctor and they tap your knee and you get that response, that all comes from these nerves. And a couple of these things we could test very easily. So when you go to the doctor and they test your strength, your sensation, and your reflexes, they're directly testing these nerves to make sure that they're functioning. When we take an x-ray, we're looking at our bones to make sure that there's no fractures in them, to make sure that the joints are lined up nicely. So if you put all of this together, put all of these layers together, here's a picture of the front and the back of our body. There's a lot of moving parts. We are a machine. And when we say non-specific low back pain, and you go to the doctors and they say, you have back pain, go to a physical therapist or a chiropractor or a trainer, we're not quite sure what's wrong. It's because so many of these parts are right on top of each other, and so many of these parts can cause a similar pain. All of these parts, our muscles, our tendons, our fascia, our ligaments, all have little sensors in them. And sometimes those sensors start sending the wrong signal. And that is most likely the cause of a lot of our non-specific low back pain. So with all these moving parts, what can we do? How do we prevent those parts failures injuries where we have a fracture or a bulging disc? And how do we prevent the repetitive stress injuries from occurring? So my biggest recommendation to you is be aware of your high-risk movements. This is something you can't avoid. We have to twist or turn, we have to bend over, but how do you do it in a better way? And that's the most important thing, is how do we do this in a better way to lower our risks? The biggest high-risk movements are bending and twisting. If you remember from a few minutes ago, talking about those discs and not taking those forces well together. It's lifting a weight far away from your body, or bending over to pick up a weight instead of squatting down. So any of these things can cause back pain from a single heavy load. So you bend over, you bend and twist, pick up a big heavy object and grab your back. Or maybe you've been shoveling all day. You've been in your garden, shoveling snow, out on the work site. Do it all day, you do that for weeks at a time, and all of a sudden pain starts to hurt in your back. So let's go over each one of these. Bending and twisting. Apologize for these photos. They're a little bit interesting today. We've got some guys shoveling snow. So if you look at the guy on the left, he's hunched over. So if you remember looking at those bones in our back and those discs, he's not loading very nicely. They're not taking that load well. His hips aren't bent, so he's not using his legs for power. And he's twisting, which again loads that bent spine a lot. If you look at the guy on the right, his back is nice and straight. Those discs are tolerating that load. So when he pushes that snow or picks that snow up, and that compresses his spine, those discs are able to tolerate that compression. He's bending on his hips, so now he could use his legs for power. So when he pushes or picks up that snow, those legs are helping to do that. And then he's pushing the snow straight ahead and not twisting. I'm sure you guys have all heard, if you guys are shoveling, to throw the snow or the dirt forward and not twist. I know that's really hard not to do, and that's kind of a learned behavior that we've all had, because it's usually easier if you're doing something like that all day long. But turning our feet and always throwing that load ahead of us can really help to decrease the risk of back pain. The next thing is lifting. I really like this picture because it shows that danger zone. As the weight gets farther away from you, especially higher and lower, that can increase the load on your spine. So if you go to pick up a weight and it's a foot or two away from you, that's much harder on your back than if that weight is right at your body. And I'm sure you guys have seen this before, but this is something always worth repeating. The same thing with the last one. This lovely picture is right off of OSHA. Again, if you bend forward to pick up something, it increases the pressure on your discs about 170%. That's a lot. Versus if you squat down to pick up something, it increases the pressure on your disc 73%. So by squatting the wrong way, you increase those pressures, you double that, more or less. So that's a lot. That's something that's very easily preventable. So what's the take-home message from all this? Most of back pain is non-specific and most likely not related to damage. So that's something that can give you some peace of mind and something that we can work on. Being aware of the high risk movements so you can lower your risk. So just start thinking about, when I'm doing these activities, how can I make this movement better so that I'm not putting my back at risk? You have that ability now. I'm sure you've been shown some of these photos or been told this many times, but put that in perspective. Every time you do something the wrong way, just because you're tired, you're fatigued, it's the end of the day, you've been doing this all week, you're ready to go home, take a step back and think about it so that you don't hurt yourself. And so this is a back pain series. There's more to come on this. We're going to talk about some prevention and treatment of specific low back pain, so those major injuries, and then also talk about some causes, prevention, and treatment of non-specific low back pain in the coming series. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Very, very informative. And in the short term, if anyone is dealing with some back pain, PT 360, can our employees visit you for a free injury screen?
Anytime, just give us a call and come on over and we can help determine the cause of pain and get you set on the right path.
Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
Very, very informative. Okay, Ken, I'm going to kick it over to you for the rest of our presentation.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you very much, Amy. Good to hear from you.
You're welcome.
Okay. I assume you can all see my screen.
We can, Ken. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we covered the ECI Wellness Series today with the lower back by Amy Sheridan, PT 360. Announcements is kind of I'm kind of being a little, maybe a little sarcastic here this morning. Just happy Bennington Battle Day, which is actually this Sunday, and it's not an official ECI holiday. I understand, I don't know too much about it, but I understand that the Bennington battle wasn't even fought in Vermont. It was in New York. So anyway, we also this week participated in the annual AGC Vermont golf tournament. And here the guys are all masked up and dressed up in ECI swag. I guess you guys did fairly good, right, Matt?
Yeah, we finished 10 under, very respectful. I think a couple of strokes off the leaderboard, but we had a lot of fun.
Good job. And we have a new employee this week. This is Ryan Blake. So welcome, Ryan. Hopefully you're listening, and everyone who's working with Ryan or gets to work and meet him, certainly introduce yourselves and welcome him to ECI. The COVID policies, again, are here for your convenience. You can just click them and bring them to your computer. And for this week, we are highlighting the Metro North Hudson Line Wayside Communication and Signal System from Garrison to Poughkeepsie, New York. And this is a revisited project. We're following up from our visit back in February before the COVID pandemic caused all the shutdowns. So ECI is contracted with the Banton Construction Company of North Haven, Connecticut to perform pre-ripping of the communications and signal improvements on this Metro North Railroad. So that's a major commuter line out of New York City. Ties all the way up into Poughkeepsie and further north, I think, even slightly. And our scope of work is to pre-rip 266,940 linear feet of new communication line to prepare for eventual plowing and installation of raceways and cables. Banton has not selected the plowing contractor for this next phase of work. It's a design build thing, so they're stepping into this gradually. ECI is using our RT 115 quad tractor with the H1032 plow attachment. The off-road pre-ripping activities are nearly complete this week as we approach the Poughkeepsie station. And to date, we've pre-ripped nearly 170,000 linear feet of off-rail work. And next week, we'll be moving to the high rail plowing activities. The high rail plowing activities, ripping portions of the Ditch Witch 1032 plow attachment are mounted onto our Volvo 180 high rail excavator and then towed by the Ditch Witch tractor, the R115 with the track, the quad track. While this process may be a little slower, it allows for pre-ripping narrow portions of railway that are otherwise inaccessible by the standard pre-ripping equipment we've been using. You can see in the pictures below where there's a maintenance road along the road, and it's been convenient for a lot of the trip, a lot of this 170,000 feet to plow right against the rail and have the entire roadway. So anyway, additionally, ECI scope includes using GPS for as-built documentation of the pre-rip path, including identifying obstructions such as culverts and shallow bedrock. So you can see some of our GPS station is set up right there in the hole that we just ripped behind the plow. So the bridge is shown in the background there, further in the background. That suspension bridge is one of the, it's an image we have. There's a couple other closer images of the approaches, but the Hudson, the mid-Hudson bridge over the Hudson River, and that links Poughkeepsie to the east bank, from the east bank to the west bank, which is the New Platte side. So the Hudson River there is fairly wide, and there's only a few crossings, and that's one of the major ones. So we also have closer picture of the quad as it goes under the approach to the bridge. Another one through a residential area, kind of along the river. There's that bridge again. And I guess what I forgot to put is the picture that Nathan gave me of the 160, a previous picture with the plow set up to show you what it was going to look like. So I apologize for that, but I will click this YouTube, which shows the plow in action for a minute. Gives you a sense of what's happening. I assume it'll work here. I haven't tested it. Oh, what's this? Been granted access. Maybe I should have tested it earlier. Well, it shows the plow course moving along at a fairly good pace, a slow walk pace, and I'll try to get that fixed for another time. Then now for the photo archives, this is the Kiewit Level 3 fiber project. I should have located, I put this in here because of its location. This was down in Albany, Rensselaer, probably in the town of Rensselaer, just north of where we're working. And this was back in 1999. And that guy waving is Carl Lockerbie. He was one of the first ECI employees. He retired probably about 10 years ago, a couple years after this, and we're feeding in conduit to be fed into a trench that was opened up with the Tesmec trencher in this case. So that's what I got, Matt. I'll turn it back over to you. Have a good day, and everyone keep safe and have a good weekend.
Well said, Ken. Thank you. Everybody have a safe day.